Hey, how's it going everyone? I hope you're all doing well as usual. So back today with another CD collection video. So not a contest, not an update, but going back to my existing CD collection. You'll recall I did one recently. I'm up to the letter L in the alphabet. So the last album I talked about was Leviathan with How Mockery at the Cross. So today I'm continuing on from there. Today it's quite a different style actually, as you probably noticed from the title. So I called this video Death Metal Paper Bagged Edition. Paper bagged as in there's some quite controversial content, like they're very sort of gory, sexually explicit death metal bands basically. So there's going to be a lot of sort of explicit lyrical references, song titles and artworks. So you'll notice I put up a disclaimer just saying if you're easily offended by such things, then don't bother watching this video. But then again, on the other hand, if you like death metal, you probably enjoy those things. I don't know, but obviously it's not for everyone. But yeah, 3 albums to talk about today by 2 bands, and they're very much in the same kind of style, but also sound different. If that doesn't make sense, you'll see what I mean as I go through this video. So the first band I'm going to talk about, there's 2 albums. So I will just get this one out of its broken case. So the first album I'm going to talk about today, remember the artwork disclaimer before this comes. This is Lividity with Fetish for the Sick. So you can see why I put up the disclaimer. That's a very sort of sexually explicit, gory cover. And you probably get an idea of what the band's about. It says here on the side, keeping it fucking sick. But yeah, actually the album title, Fetish for the Sick. So basically, if you're not familiar with Lividity, they're a death metal band from Illinois, USA, but I suppose you could call them death grind in a way because the music is often quite complex and technical in terms of the riffage and the dexterity. But at the same time, it sounds kind of groovy and groove-driven and very catchy, so it's an interesting combination. But I never realized how complex their music was until I saw footage of them playing live, and they're going down the neck of the guitars and bass like this. So yeah, that's the kind of cool thing. While it's technical, it's very catchy. So death grind, or as they've often called themselves, a porn gore death metal band, in the sense that the lyrics are, blending gore and sex basically, which has been done before. I think Chris Barnes, formerly of Cannibal Corpse, has a lot to answer for from the lyrics he wrote on Butchered at Birth, Tomb of the Mutilated and the Bleeding. That's why I'm wearing the Butchered at Birth shirt today, because sort of fitting for the content today. But yeah, basically one of those bands where most of the lyrics are combining gore and sex. So that's not for everyone. I don't take it seriously. It's just a theme of a particular band, but there you go. But some people do like that for the shock value, and I did, especially when I was younger. But now it's obviously more about the music. But yeah, so porn gore death metal band, or death grind band from the USA. I've talked about the lyrics, and what's interesting is, similarly to Mortician, they use a lot of samples in their, as the intros to their songs. So yes, a lot of those samples are from horror movies. For example, on this one, you get a few samples from Hellraiser 3, I think, which is a great movie. But they also have other random ones, like some with some comedy value. And in a kind of crass way, actually, they also have some samples from porn films, or, porn movie hotlines, which are not particularly witty or clever, so I don't really think much of those. But occasionally they have the occasional, like witty sort of sample from a comedy horror movie or something like that. But yeah, as always, ultimately it's about the music. But how can I describe this? It's just pure death metal. Just going into the sleeve before I forget. So it says, this album is dedicated to the gore gods Impetigo, Autopsy and Paralysis. Their presence is felt. So basically they're saying they're the main 3 influences: Impetigo, Autopsy and Paralysis. To be honest, I'm not overly familiar with Impetigo, but they are the gods of gore. But Autopsy, I'm a massive fan. This doesn't sound, it's not as doom-laden as Autopsy, but definitely you can hear that Autopsy influence with the slow, heavy, open power chords, but it's just not as doom-laden. This is much more energetic, but basically you have very heavy, fast chugging riffs in this. They're down-tuned, so the guitars are tuned as low as they can go, with extremely low guttural vocals, sort of in the vein of early Cannibal Corpse, like Chris Barnes, on albums like Butchered at Birth, as well as Mortician vocals. Those are sort of like low moist, burbly vocals. But what I also really like is there's very audible bass in this that has a kind of like slap style pang with some of the notes they play, and the drums sound very clicky, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but like it's just very well produced, so you can hear the drums with excellent precision, and there's very complex blast beats, and like you hear all the cymbals and everything. So musically it's really impressive, and what I also like is every song has a variety of tempos and time changes, so it makes the songs very interesting and very catchy. And like I said before, this band, for some reason, somehow they sound technical yet groovy at the same time. So it's absolutely awesome. If you like that old school sort of death metal sound, you will absolutely love this. So yeah, in some ways, this particular album also stands apart in the sense that, from their other albums, in the sense that it sounds a bit like dark death metal. So it has some things in common with Immolation and Incantation as well, but I'd say most notably in terms of the vocals, but it's much more upbeat and energetic than Incantation and Immolation. But yeah, you get the idea. Early Cannibal Corpse, Mortician, yeah, Incantation, Immolation, so it's old school stuff. Really good. They have some, you know, sexually explicit song titles on this. Like some are absolutely ridiculous and silly, like for example, Lacerations of an Unclean Twat, and you know, like you see the sort of misogynistic, like this song Pussy Lover, and but there are also some funny ones like Brains for Lubrication and My Cock It Bleeds. Like absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, it's not about the lyrics, it's about the music for me. And actually every song is catchy, riffy, and very fun. My favorite song on the album is track 5, entitled Graveyard Delicacy. That's just got some doomy autopsy-esque slow open chord riffs, which I really like. But the whole album is fantastic. And like I said, it's just very, there's a lot of twists and turns with the time changes. It's very energetic, and you can hear the bass and the drums really clearly, and that's a good thing because they're so complex. There's so much going on with this music, but absolutely fantastic for all old school fans of death metal for sure. So there's the disc there, a picture of the band standing in the Illinois snow. I won't show you the image behind this disc because it's absolutely sick and offensive, trust me, and it would result in the video getting taken down from YouTube. So there's the cover, and they just have a thank list here, and then picture of the band. So this featured Matt Bishop on guitar and vocals, Dave Kibler on guitar and vocals. Oh, speaking of which, this band has a dual vocal attack. Like Matt Bishop does the low sort of guttural Cookie Monster vocals, and Dave Kibler does the screamy high-pitched vocals. But yeah, a lot of bands do that, like Gorgasm as another example, and they're also similar lyrically. Mike Smith on bass and Tommy Davis on drums. This was the last album that Tommy played drums on, but that's a shame because he's an excellent drummer. And you can just really, the drumming skills are just absolutely awesome on this record. Yeah, so if you like old school death metal, riffy, thrashy, chugging, down-tuned, brutal, and you don't mind like some silly samples, I would definitely recommend this album. Like I said, I don't pay much attention to the lyrics or like the porn film samples, but like the actual music is fantastic. So that's Lividity with Fetish for the Sick. Right, and the next album I'm going to talk about is by the same band. This is the only other album I own by them, but they do own a few ones. I think this is a censored cover actually, which is good for the purposes of this video. Alright, so up next, this is Lividity once again with, sorry, I feel silly for saying this title, but with The Age of Clitoral Decay. So that's what the album's called. So yes, you can see, again, porn-gore death metal. And with this album, sadly, there's more of a misogynistic attitude trickling in. And like I said, I don't take the lyrics seriously, but I think some bands just run on that theme, like trying to be as offensive as possible by combining gore and sex. And also, like, you know, I'm not going to apologize or, you know, justify myself, because one time when I said about devourment, it annoys me when bands write song after song of misogynistic lyrics, and then, believe it or not, a woman criticized me saying I'm too soft and sensitive and I should stick to pop music, bro. So you can't win. So lyrics, I hate this expression, but it is what it is. That's what the lyrics are, but I like this album for the music. And speaking of which, this album is absolutely fantastic. It's probably this might sound like a strong statement to make, but probably in my top 20 death metal albums of all time. And that's an idea I'm thinking of doing for a video soon, like top 20 death metal albums, top 20 black metal albums. Let me know if you want to see that. But yeah, just the music in this, I've listened to this for so many years, it's so memorable. I should backtrack by saying, the way I discovered this band, it was like in the early 2000s, I had a metal friend from Belgium, and she was a massive fan of this band, so she recommended them to me. And then in the early 2000s, when I was corresponding with Ken from Ken's Death Metal Crypt, you know, we used to tape trade, and I saw he had a lot of this band's albums, so I traded, he copied some albums for me, and then I ended up really liking them, so that's how I discovered this band. But this album is just even better than Fetish for the Sick, in my opinion. The production is better, the riffs are even more memorable still, and like it's extremely heavy, down-tuned and chugging, but they just have interesting moments. Like I know I did make a comparison to Mortician, but they're a lot more technical and complex than Mortician. The riffs can often be melodic. It's just an interesting album. You just go and listen to it, but it's very bouncy, catchy, and interesting. So I really like that. Again, yeah, sadly, the lyrics are really over the top, and so are the song titles. Like, so, you know, I think sometimes bordering on immature, actually, if you ask me. But I mean, I think they're not being particularly serious either. Like, it's just to be sick and offensive with porn and gore, so to speak, which is an interesting combination. But yeah, this is definitely my favorite album by them for sure. Like, again, they have some silly song titles like Oozing Vaginal Discharge and Anal Action Wife. Like, I think it's a bit silly, but like I said, the music is absolutely fantastic though. And yeah, how many tracks on this one? 9. They do a cover of Impetigo's Bloody Pit of Horror. And yeah, I mean, yeah, every song's about chopping up women except for Chamber of Bone, which is kind of based more on a horror theme actually. But yeah, really good album. Like, just every song has standout moments with the riffs and the vocals. By the way, the vocals are much more, Matt Bishop's vocals on this one, they're much more low and guttural and Cookie Monster-esque. But Dave Kibler, who does the screamy vocals, like, he just makes some, with the vocal patterns, there's some parts of some songs which are just so memorable, and like, so it's actually the words and the lyrics are making it as catchy as the music. But really, really good. What are my favorite songs on this? Like, there's pretty much all of them in terms of how they go, like musically. I mean, I feel silly reading out some of these titles, but yeah, so the opening track is really good. So is The Urge to Splurge, which is track 2. Track 5, I probably shouldn't say the name because it's very offensive, but that's a really good song, and I really like the vocal patterns in that, especially the line where he says, "Never again will I miss the stench of shit that overwhelms my sense of reason." That doesn't even make sense, but trust me, the way it's delivered is funny. Oh, I remember years ago I read some lyrics from this, like, to my girlfriend at the time, and she was cracking up like at how funny in a like silly way they were. So like, I mean, you shouldn't take the lyrics too seriously, and you should not get offended. But yeah, probably my favorite track on this, and again, I feel silly for saying this, but musically is from the song track 7, Dismembering Her Lifeless Corpse, because it's just a very catchy song with the sort of chugging, doom-laden riffs and everything, and just in some incredible moments with those vocal patterns as well. So 9 tracks. I will say the lyrics on this album get a lot worse, and by the time you get to the lyrics on the last track, like Sodomy Ritual, the opening couple of lines, I'm like, oh god. You know, and actually the lyrics got worse on the album, which followed up from this, which was Till Only the Sick Remain. But yeah, for me it's about the music, and like I said, it's very hooky, very catchy, everything you want in a brutal death metal album, basically. And again, they have the samples, yeah, some from adult films, which, you know, are pointless and sort of like a bit long, but like musically absolutely fantastic. So there's the cover there, and there's a picture of the guys on the back. Put a shirt on. And I won't show you the back, again, the back cover, because that's got an offensive image. Ah, damn. I left the CD in the CD player, so I hope you don't mind, but I can't show you that anyway because that's quite sexually explicit, so we'll just go into the booklet. So there's the cover. It's got the lyrics on the back. Oh, sorry. So thanks list here. And pictures of bands they toured with in Europe. And then you have here these kind of superimposed images of the band. So Dave Kibler on guitar and vocals, Matt Bishop looking quite frightening on guitar and vocals, Mike Papa Smith on bass, and Nick Null on drums. Oh, speaking of which, Mike Smith, the drummer of this band, I don't know if he got the nickname Papa, what was the reason, but he looks like a typical American dad, like not a death metal musician, like he's quite a big, chunky guy, and like has short hair, and he always wears football jerseys by famous bands. I can't remember where that picture was actually. But so like he just looks like the odd one out and just totally not like a death metal musician. Nick Null, his drumming, so he was the new drummer on this album, it's absolutely fantastic. Like blasting, incredibly precise, and like it's very snare heavy, and the drum has that kind of pang sound, but not in that excessive, you know, slammy death metal way. This is not slam death metal at all, it's death grind, old school death metal. But yeah, Nick Null, absolutely fantastic drummer, and very sadly, he passed away after this album. He died of a heart attack, I think as a result of drugs, which is sad because he was a very talented drummer. And yeah, so rest in peace, Nick. Oh shit. So yes, some sexually explicit imagery here. Hopefully this video doesn't get taken down. So like I said, I think it's a bit puerile and immature, you know, like some of the lyrical content and the imagery, but musically it's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, so that's Lividity with The Age of Clitoral Decay. Great album, again, for the music. All right, and the last band I'm going to show today is another band in the same style, so they fit sort of nicely in the category. So again, remember the disclaimer regarding artworks and everything else, but this one is a doozy, really, in terms of the cover art. Ready? This is Lord Gore with the Autophagous Orgy. So you can see this particular cover, it's inspired by Japanese anime, but it's extremely gory. So like autophagous, if you're not familiar with that term, it means self-eating, so an animal or a human which eats itself. And yeah, the Autophagous Orgy, so again, combining gore and sex on this. So you can imagine with this particular band, it's a similar style. So very sort of like a gory, down-tuned, brutal death metal. It's extremely over the top, but in a good way, especially the vocals. They're almost like gurgles, but you can still hear everything clearly enunciated. See this here on the back? That says, that's a label, Category 3, Warning. Extreme violence and explicit material. Yes, that's true. They don't actually include the lyrics in this, but you can find them online. But yeah, basically it's very down-tuned, brutal, old-school death metal. If you like that gory death metal stuff, definitely check out Lord Gore. This is a fun album, definitely. And what's interesting is that they also use samples from horror movies as well, except the difference is the samples that Lord Gore used. Like with Lividity, I find them a bit crass and sort of like, oh God. But like with the samples on this, there's a sort of like really macabre sense of humor, and some of them are just quite funny, like make me laugh out loud. Like some from horror movies, some from comedy horror, but it's quite witty. And I think this band has a kind of like tongue-in-cheek, macabre sense of humor, whereas Lividity might be a bit more serious about it. I don't know, but yeah, just really good. Brutal vocals. Again, they have the twin vocal attack with the low gurgled vocals and the high-pitched screams and everything. And yeah, this is down-tuned as far as it can go. And yeah, absolutely brilliant stuff. So every song on this is good. They also have very catchy moments, like probably some of these song titles again are quite over the top, so forgive me for saying this, but probably some of the catchiest songs would be the opening track, Morgue Hall, which is very very doom-laden, but very catchy. And also, sorry, again, apologies about the title, but it's a very catchy song. Rape Camp is a very good song. And also, what's the other one? Zombie Molestation, Raped by the Dead, but that has a sample from Return of the Living Dead or Night of the Living Dead, something like that. But yeah, like I said, some of the samples in this are funny. So I think it is supposed to be gory and sickening, but they still have a sense of humor about it. So yeah, just show you the booklet here. So there's that explicit cover. And what does it say here? Look upon my own flesh with disgust as I salivate, consumption be done. picture of the band and the thanks list. And there's the disc there itself and all the song titles on the back. I'll just give you some insight into this band's sense of humor, just a moment. Sorry, these days, because I can't see very well, my eyesight's pretty bad. I need the magnifying glass, but this gives you an idea of the band's sense of humor. Like they say, on their thanks list, they say, thanks to all prison riots and suicide cults for keeping it real. And what else? Oh yeah, every zombie cannibal porn snuff flick for making us the depraved bastards we are today. Thanks man, tell your friends, we exhume you. And then the fuck off list is funny. A sick fuck off to the following, all purveyors of false metal. May Sammy come out of your stereo and rip your balls off. All blood-sucking, soul-sucking head fuckers and psychic vampires, go get fucked, you shitbags. The heartless pecker checkers at the IRS, you people are the real cannibals. Every PC, Vaseline, cock-sucking cum dumpster from our town, and every other. Eat a bag of dicks and choke on the balls. So as you can see, they've got a very funny sense of humor, in my opinion anyway. And there's a picture of the band, which is also very explicit. And the song, the descriptions of the band members are funny too. So it's Necrovon, so that's this guy here. He's responsible for butchered horse screams and vaginal eviscerations. And then Regurgiophile, or Gurge, I think here, seven-bladed misogyny and bowel chowder lung butter. CSCI, subsonic ramming and romming, and colon bowels, skulls and skins. So yes, they do have a macabre sense of humor, definitely, but absolutely fantastic album as well. I don't listen to this one too much, but I always enjoy it when I do. And so yes, guys, that is Lord Gore with the Autophagous Orgy. So if you like heavy down-tuned gory death metal, check it out. Just one moment. So basically, to sum up with these bands, Lividity and Lord Gore, I would recommend them for fans of the following bands. Like if you like early Cannibal Corpse, particularly, you know, Butchered at Birth and Tomb of the Mutilated, as well as Mortician, Autopsy, early Psychroptic in terms of the technicality and bounciness, and also like the vocals of Incantation and Immolation, so a lot of old school bands there. You will probably really like these bands, Lividity and Lord Gore. So like I said, I'm not particularly thrilled with the lyrical content, but ultimately it's the music that counts, and that second Lividity album, I think it's probably in my top 20 death metal albums of all time. So anyway guys, remember, take it with a grain of salt. Bands have a running theme. You don't have to agree with the lyrics. Musically is ultimately what counts, but this is about as sickening as and offensive as you can get with gory death metal, I think, but musically they are both great bands. So let me know, what do you think of these bands and albums? Do you like any similar bands? Like another band which I like sort of in this vein is Gorgasm, except they play a even more sort of brutal form, like they sound a bit more like Suffocation, but also very good stuff. Yeah, so let me know what you think of this video, of these bands, and I'd really appreciate some feedback. So hope nobody got too offended, but like I said, that's why I put the disclaimer up, and remember, you don't have to take everything seriously. All right, so I'm gonna leave it there, guys. Back again soon with another collection update. I've really got a backlog, so I have a shitload to talk about, don't worry about that, but I hope you stick around for the next video. In the meantime, stay safe, and I'll talk to you soon. Cheers, bye.